Hello my dear students and welcome to today's lesson. 3 grammar, 4 listen and 5 speak. For grade 9, module 5 lesson C, students book page 57. Let's get started. Let's start with the learning objectives. Students will be able to 1. Use the modal verbs should, ought to, and had better in meaningful situations. 2. Respond to 5 WH questions after listening to a radio show about packing. 3. Role play asking for advice and making suggestions about visiting a friend in another city or country for the first time. This is the first part in our lesson today, 3 grammar. In the student's book, page 57. Giving advice. And these are the modal verbs should, ought to, and had better. Exercise A. Read the examples. Are the statements 1 to 5 below true or false? Let's read the examples first. Should we book your holiday at the local travel agency? You ought to see a doctor about your headaches. You shouldn't drink so much caffeine. It's bad for you. You can borrow my car, but you'd better not crash it. Now, pause the video and read these 5 sentences. Now let's move to the grammar reference in the student's book, page 70. And here we are going to explain the use and the form of these modal verbs. Should and ought to. We use should and ought to plus the base form of the verb. So this is the form, should, and the verb ought to, plus the base form of the verb. 2. Here are the uses of these verbs. Number 1. Ask for and give advice. For example, what should I do? Should I see a doctor? The second use. Express an opinion. For example, I think she ought to tell her mom about it. The third use. Make a suggestion. For example, we should go to the park. It's a beautiful day. Let's read this note. Should and ought to plus base form of the verb refers to the present or future. They refer to the present or future. Now, what about the verb had better? We use had better plus base form of the verb. Also, this is the form, had better plus the base form of the verb. And this is the use. To give strong advice. It often expresses threat or warning, and it's stronger than should. It refers to the present or future, not the past. Its negative form is had better not. In spoken English, the short form is commonly used I'd better or you'd better, etc. For example, you'd better ask a doctor about it. You'd better not lie to me again. Now pause the video, read these statements, and decide if they are true or false. Now let's check your answers. Number 1. Should, ought to, and had better are followed by to plus base form. Is it true or false? Excellent, my students. It's false. Why? Because these verbs are followed by only the base form, without to. Number 2. Should, ought to, and had better refer to the past. Is it true or false? Very good, my students. It's false. Why? Because these verbs refer to the present or the future. Number 3. The negative form of should, ought to, and had better is formed by adding not. Great job, my students. That's right. It's true. Number 4. We use should, ought to, and had better to ask for or give advice, express an opinion, or make a suggestion. Excellent, my students. It's true. Number 5. Had better can sometimes imply a warning. That's right. It's true. Well done, my students. This is exercise B in the student's book, page 57. Rewrite the sentences using the words given. As you see here, we have 4 sentences. We are going to rewrite them using these verbs: had better, ought to, had better, and should. Now pause the video, then answer. Now let's check your answers. Number 1. Don't forget to set the alarm clock for tomorrow morning. Rewrite using had better. You. Very good, my students. You'd better set the alarm clock for tomorrow morning. Or, you'd better not forget to set the alarm clock for tomorrow morning. What you are going to do here is to find the main verb and write the modal verbs before it. You'd better set, or you can write it like this: you'd better not forget to set the alarm clock. Number 2. It's a good idea to take sunscreen with you. Rewrite using ought to. Start with you. Excellent, my students. You ought to take sunscreen with you. Take here is the main verb. Write it here and use the modal verb ought to. So, you ought to take sunscreen with you. Number 3. We have to leave for the station right now because we are going to miss our train. Rewrite using had better. Start with we. Where is the main verb here? Very good, my students. It's leave. So, it will be, we'd better leave for the station right now because we are going to miss our train. Very good, my students. Number 4. It's not a good idea to drive when you are feeling dizzy. Rewrite using should. Start with you. Where is the main verb here in this sentence? Very good, my students. It's a drive. And here you have not. Don't forget to use not with should. So, you shouldn't drive when you are feeling dizzy. Very good, my students. This is the second part in our lesson today. For listen. In the student's book, page 57. Exercise A, discuss. As you see here, we have 2 questions. We are going to answer them as a pre-listening activity. Do you find packing for a trip stressful? Why or why not? And as you see here in the picture, this is packing for a trip. Number 2. How do you decide what to take and what not to take with you? Pause the video, think, then answer. Now let's check your answers. Here I have some suggested answers for you. You can compare them with your answers. Let's move to exercise B in the student's book, page 57, and this is a while listening activity. Listen to a radio show about packing. Which of the following are mentioned? Read these words and the phrases, then listen and choose which of the following words or phrases are mentioned. Now let's listen.
4. Listen. B. Listen to a radio show about packing. Which of the following are mentioned?
Welcome back. Summer is almost here, and that means it's time for a holiday. But before you go, there's that eternal problem you need to deal with. What to take? What not to take? How much to take? It can be pretty stressful, but don't worry. Kevin is here to give you a few tips.
Hi, Steve.
So, what's the first thing to think about?
Well, let's start with things you shouldn't pack. Airlines lose about 40 million suitcases every year. So you'd better not put valuable things like expensive jewelry into luggage you're going to check in.
Yes, I try to avoid doing that. Anything else we shouldn't take with us?
Well, most countries don't let you enter with fruit and vegetables, and in fact, most uncooked food. But some countries have strange rules about what you can't enter with. For example, in Singapore, you're not allowed to bring chewing gum into the country.
Really? Why's that?
Well, they're trying to stop people from sticking gum in public places. They like to stay clean in Singapore. But my point is, do some research about the country you're visiting before you leave.
Okay, now let's get more practical. Whenever I travel, my main problem is trying to pack light.
You're not alone, and it's not always an easy thing to do. A good idea is to call the hotel or friend you're staying with before you leave and ask if they have a hairdryer, towels. Anything that you can leave behind is going to help you travel light.
That's good advice. I always want to know whether the hotel has an iron or not.
Also, you'd better have a good idea of what the weather is like at your destination. That way, you can avoid taking clothing you don't need at all. You should try to avoid just-in-case clothes, which you're never going to wear. Also, try to wear your heaviest shoes and coat while you're traveling, so that you don't need to pack them in your suitcase.
More good advice. Thanks, Kevin. Now let's talk about...
Let's check your answers. Which of the following are mentioned? Very good, my students. Iron, chewing gum, towels, jewelry, and shoes. Well done, my students. In exercise C, we are going to listen again and answer the questions. Here we have 5 questions. We are going to answer them after listening again. Now, pause the video, read these questions, then listen again and answer. Now let's check your answers. Number 1. How many suitcases do airlines lose every year? Very good, my students. About 40 million. Can you find a clue to justify this answer? Excellent, my students. 2. Where shouldn't you put valuable items? Very good, my students. In or into luggage you are going to check in. Can you justify this answer? Very good, my students. It's here. 3. What can't you take with you to Singapore? Very good, my students. Chewing gum. Can you justify this answer? Excellent, my students. 4. What should you do before you leave? Very good, my students. Call the hotel or friend you are staying with and ask if they have a hair dryer or towels. Can you justify this answer? Excellent, my students. The last question. What should you wear while you are traveling? Very good, my students. Your heaviest shoes and coat. Can you justify this answer? That's right. Well done, my students. Exercise D. Answer the following questions. Are you familiar with any of the tips you heard? Which one or ones do you find useful or not useful, and why? Pause the video, think, then answer. This is the third part in our lesson today, 5 Speak. Pair work. Talk in pairs. Go to the speaking activities section on page 63. Open your student's book, page 63. And here we are going to talk in pairs. Student A and Student B. Student A, imagine that this is the first time you are going to visit a friend. Student B, who lives in another city or country. Call him or her asking about the following. Use these prompts to ask questions for Student B. Student B, imagine that your friend, Student A, who lives in another city or country, is going to visit you for the first time. He or she calls you to ask for advice. Answer his or her questions, give advice, and make suggestions. And here we are going to complete this dialogue after making or asking these questions and answering them. Now, pause the video, ask and answer. Now let's check your answers. Let's make a role play to ask and answer these questions. A. I have great news. I'm coming next week. B. Really? I can't wait. A. Listen, I have some questions for you. What's the weather like at this time of year? B. Well, it's pretty chilly at the moment, and it often rains. A. So what should I pack? B. You should definitely bring a coat and some warm jumpers, and you'd better not forget an umbrella or a raincoat. Well done, my students. Now, ask and answer these questions. Here I have suggested answers for you. You can compare them with your answers. This is the end of our lesson today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.